Welcome to Kinjazi TV. Today we are going to read a novel entitled Lonely Days. Listen attentively. The night Ajimobi died 9 full months ago, a shooting star zoomed down the empty sky in a long line of fire. The people of Kufi heard the go-away bird hooting a sad mournful tune on the bow of an Iroko. The meaning of all this was very clear to Yerimi. Ajimobi had been accepted by his maker. His spirit had gone straight to heaven, not missing the way. Yerimi's eyes twinkled. She did not know whether to begin to shed tears of sorrow or tears of gratitude. But because her husband had left her alone to the wicked world, just like that, and without a word of farewell, she quickly made a choice. It must be tears of sorrow, sorrow from the abyss of boiled heart. Yerimi's face instantly was shadowed in deep misery, and the whole world immediately went black before her eyes. She made effort to console herself, even as the distressful eyes of sympathizers glared from the helm of Gamet, secretly castigating. Yerimi wondered. Her husband certainly did not die a disgraceful death. For this, she told herself she must be thankful. Ajimobi did not die an abominable death. No, he did not drink poison out of frustration with life, and he did not fall from the slippery tip of the palm tree on a rainy day. He was not struck by lightning, not bitten by a cobra, not crushed to death between the fallen walls of the village mud buildings. Ajimobi did not hang himself with the rope on the kola-nut tree like the Aku fire cutter, whose dead body the people had cut down and had buried at the Iloro with incident haste, inside shallow, nameless grave filled with loose soil and forest sand. No suicide for Ajimobi. He lived like a man and died like a man. Yerimi was thankful, but the tears now rolled in torrent down her face, streaming into the corner of her mouth and tasting like salt. The temporariness of man's facet on earth was a certainty. Yerimi at once surrendered herself to the design of destiny and to the agony of what seemed to her an irreplaceable loss. She was the last human being Ajimobi saw when his eyes were finally closing up in death. What a great honor. Her husband gave her the last-minute parting stare, quick, penetrating, and meaningful. There was an expression of hurt and disappointment in Ajimobi's dying black eyes. Yerimi got the message, and with all her heart, she tried to communicate to Ajimobi not only sorrow and solidarity, but also deep apology for all the wrong she probably had committed. Something told her she must have offended her husband deeply, to be shot and to be wounded. With such strange, reproachful glare, she was just ready now to beg, ready to atone, and ready to apologize. The painful finality of Ajimobi's last minute on earth rang in Yerimi's head, splitting her brain with remembered images. She stumbled as she stepped out into the scientific of her head tie, which had fallen on the ground during the course of prolonged veiling. She was scanned by mourners in all directions. All eyes followed every footstep she took with hostile closeness, and all ear listened, ready to catch her every word in a set trap. These obviously were not people merely sitting in silent sympathy in presence of death, but people who were fully bent on humiliating and destroying her reputation. These were lonely days indeed. Yerimi felt thoroughly abandoned, like a stone at the bottom of a lake. Silence sank like sad music in her heart and descended on her soul in pitiable layers. One by one, the mourners had left, leaving her to solve the anguish of a private sorrow secretly. Then followed, after a few days, the extended family's mockery heaped on her like the strange shower of a January rain. And now loneliness, Yeremi's days dragged lazily on in a haze of solitude and lonesomeness. She had never learned to be able to be alone in all her life, but loneliness had now pitched a tent and had become to her a deep black color like the night, eternal night, thick and tangible with no glimmer of light and no trace of life. That lonely days and lonely nights, unending, somber, gloomy and desolate, where only the wind fled freely along in the air. Yeremi's two daughters, who used to keep her company, had long been given away in marriage. Segi Tuande, the nimble-footed farm wine tapper from Olode, who climbed the tallest tree in the forest to bring down the freshest wine with the highest cost. Wura to blacksmith at Afon, who owned a granite anvil and 2 barrels of baked clay. The Iron Man, as they called him. With the fiery furnace, Wura's husband was nicknamed Sokoti, the blacksmith of heaven, welding gongs and salvaging crafts of metal to create shovels and axes of local design to earn a living. Yeremi's only son, Alani, was an expert furniture carpenter who now lived in Ibadan, far away from his mother. In town, Alani had become more than just a carpenter. He had become urbanized as a result of his long stay, and now he hardly remembered the little village of his birth, Kupi. To him was becoming a lonely settlement at the very end of the earth, a small unmapped hamlet inhabited by a handful of people, where time was measured by length of shadows, the movement of the sun and the direction of the wind, and the throaty call of the cock with the big red comb. A village where silence reigned, broken only by the hooting of the owl, the cuckoo of the dove and the yapping of wild dogs. Now alone in the world, Yeremi was left to prepare heaps and raise crops all by herself, laboring hour after hour under the sweltering heat. She had to cut the bushes around the family compound and appeal to the village men, especially to Uncle Deyo, Ajimabi's bosom friend, to assist in mending the leaking roof and rebuilding the falling walls of her mud house. It was her habit to trek to distant farm, her husband's farm, to uproot cassava tubers to feed her goat with. She would linger all day along in the sun to dry maize grain for an evening meal of delicious forage and mellow stew. But Yeremi's main job was dying taffeta clothes in indigo solution at her yet secure ready cash. This taffeta product she would carry inside a large wooden tray to the market of Sabi, 3 miles away for sale to willing customers. Come away, Yeremi used to shout in the heat and excitement of work, on her little grandchild staying with her. Right now we have to begin folding these taffeta clothes. The next market days is only 2 days away. Take a broom and sweep this dirty floor. Spread the mat. Bring out our 2 mallets. Let's begin to beat the clothes into fleets. Very fine fleets, so that customers at Sabi market will have nowhere else to go than our stall to get the best taffeta. After a long spell of heavy funding, Yeremi would slowly raise up her head and smile, catching the tired face of her grandchild and the small drop of sweat that had begun to gather over the little boy's brow. There you are, Oye, she would tease. At your age, I could swing the mallet non-stop from cockrow to cockroach, all through beating nonsense out of taffeta clothes, never getting tired. But see how weary you have become now, you indolent creature. When will you learn not to be lazy? Lazy boys go to farm only to watch the vulture dozing on the boobarb. They waste time playing with the cattle egret roasting on the silk cotton tree at the approach of rain. and the giant crab digging its abode on the bed of the mockery village stream. Lazy boys are many in this village, and you are one of them. You are their leader. See now, Woye, you swing your mallet over the tapita as if there is no more strength in you. You and your tongue crawl out of your small mouth. Just let me finish folding this tapita and reach for my long cane at the corner of the room. Wham, wham, the cane will cycle and its mark will show around the narrow band of your neck and on the naked column of your black skin. I will crack the whip down in a terrific speed, and when I get retired, Oye, the whip will drift in slowly motion round your tiny body. I will make you howl like a dog, kick in stomach for stealing the only bone inside the foot. No, Mama, don't beat me. Oye always pleaded. Please, don't kick me like a dog. I'm not going to be lazy anymore. I swear, Mama. Being lazy is not good for a small boy like me. Tomorrow, Mama, I will beat 10 tapita fleet, and day after 10 fleets to fleece you. Next week, Mama, I will beat 40 all in one day. Beat 40 tapita today, Oye, lazy boy. Not tomorrow, and not next week. Never leave till tomorrow what could be done today. Today is sure way, but nobody knows what tomorrow will bring. All right, Mama. And Oye would resume beating the tapita with his small mallet very furiously, playfully counting the number of game on each stroke of his mallet. One resembled one. Oye's sharp little voice would rise and pierce the bamboo rafter on the roof of the house. Yerimi would watch her grandchild with great amusement, a pleasant smile hovering over her face. Go on, Oye, she always urged. Go on playing the number game with your mallet. Go on beating a steady tempo on the tapita close. That is one sure way to remove boredom, and one way to make your work lighter. Don't stop, Oye, until you will get to number of 100. Make sure your hand moves faster than your tongue. Many years ago at Adeyefu, when I was a little child like you, Oye, I did not just start counting and counting, founding and founding, counting and founding, founding and counting. I would never stop founding until I had counted up to 300 on my mallet and beaten 60 tapita plates in just one day. Work was music to us. Oye, you would spread out tapita with laughing eyes and allow the joy of work to radiate on our countenance, all along singing merrily. The sweet memory of childhood days came crowding back to Yerimi, and she enthusiastically took over the chanting of the number of game from Oye, her eyes half closed, her teeth flashing. Yes, together let's go on counting now, Oye. From 16, let's sing along and count. Together let's go on founding. Furiously and be deranged in perspiration. Come on, Oye. Let's get intoxicated with work. Let the tissue on our strong arms stand up like worms on our warm skin as we found away a tapita. For Yerimi, it was now work and work, a holy work. The will of survival was there, putting determination into her bones and vigor into her nerves, and gradually she began to accustom herself to the hard fact that she really was a widow. The end of chapter 1. Don't forget to like our page for more videos.